here.
Freddie Gordon is here.
Okay, well, welcome by Zoom. Thank you for attending today. As I said, it is our first meeting by Zoom. At this time, I'll ask the members in the room to identify myself. I am Mayor Kilgore.
Salute Anthony.
Lynn Kazire.
Today's meeting is a special meeting for the purpose of discussing the 20 and 21 budget, take possible action with the budget. This means that the council cannot discuss other issues this afternoon. We'll only be discussing the budget. I want to make sure that the public watching this meeting understands that. There'll be nothing discussed other than the budget today. This is a budget workshop meeting. And now I'll turn the meeting over to our manager, Mr. Fiscal.
Welcome, Mayor and members of City Council and staff to the budget workshop for fiscal year ending 2021. I'd like to make a few introductory remarks regarding today's meeting format and fiscal challenges. Before that, please, all that are participating by Zoom, place your device on mute to reduce the noise and feedback, electronic feedback. When you need to speak or want to speak, please then unmute your device. In terms of the meeting format, the stay-at-home order and other limits on congregating, such as social distancing for 6 feet of separation, limiting public gatherings of 9 feet or less, has meant that for you and for our staff's health and welfare, we are participating, as the mayor said, in this special meeting remotely via Zoom media platform. Zoom is being streamed across the internet and into the adjoining rooms of council chambers to accommodate public engagement and access. Chambers are limited to 9 citizens. Others are welcome to view these proceedings via Zoom through the city's YouTube channel, posted on the City of Monroe webpage under the City Council's link. As a workshop, this special meeting is not structured for public comment or participation. The session is structured for you to receive a foundation to advance your fiscal understanding of the proposed spending plan for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, which begins July 1st. I've asked Pete to be available from his office next door to the conference room where the mayor is seated and his colleagues to assist with IT elements and act as the digital moderator to help recognize staff that may offer to clarify points during this presentation as they digitally raise their hands through the Zoom platform. This by no means is meant to hinder council from asking questions, but with 20+ individuals participating remotely, I felt having a moderator close to you would help. And if you have a question, council, please simply ask as you would in any other meeting environment. In terms of designing the proposed spending plan, which is in a moment Lisa will present through about 35 slides or so, is that this year was particularly challenging. Our property and sales tax forecasts were anemic, but did show an increase year over year. And then COVID-19 emerged. Why is that a concern? Well, the virus is having an unprecedented economic impact on commerce that current generations of Americans have not experienced before. A number of sources reflect somewhat similar forecasts as the following agencies and institutions. And just illustrate a couple or highlight a few. Johns Hopkins University has described COVID-19 as creating a supply shock. Federal monetary and fiscal policy is trying to mitigate the occurrence of a possible second shock impacting demand, basically consumption through consumer spending. They've noted that the U.S. Treasury has forecasted short-term unemployment rate will likely reach 20%. Morningstar, another agency or entity, suggests that if restrictions are lifted by June or July, the trend on an annual basis is about a 2.9% economic contraction. As a basis, they refer to an estimate of about 70% of our economy or 70% of our gross domestic product is exempt from the so-called stay-at-home order limits. Earlier this month, CNBC was covering Goldman Sachs, who forecasted unemployment will peak at 15%. First quarter GDP, a 9% contraction. Second quarter GDP, a 34% contraction. On an annualized basis, about a 6% overall contraction. They expect manufacturing to recover somewhat more rapidly than service industry as factories are likely to reopen more quickly than non-essential service firms. Those are horrific possibilities. What might that mean for us at the local level? Well, our businesses that generate sales tax revenue, such as restaurants, have closed or are accepting carryout orders only. And entertainment venues are closed, idling our citizens and impacting many workers either by furloughs or being laid off. More generally, the stay-at-home order has discouraged various types of shopping. Thus, I felt it fiscally prudent to make an additional downward adjustment of expenditures as a precaution and in anticipation of lower sales tax revenues and collection rates that may worsen for property taxes and our utilities. Most of our funds do have a fund balance, but I'm concerned with placing an over-reliance on those savings, known by another name, on the front end of creating this spending plan and budget. Those views impacted funding a number of your retreat goals, as will be highlighted towards the end of Lisa's slide sequence. Those circumstances also significantly hindered advancing public safety initiatives for Fire Station 6 staffing and expanding the police department's community policing programs. Although I reduced a variety of expenditures to preserve cash flow and also fund balance for use to meet possible contingencies, I did allocate funds to address our most vital asset, our city employees, through two forms of salary adjustments, a merit and a mid-year cost of living adjustment. Those are both recommendations. The total percent of both those approximates what was funded in the current fiscal year as a merit. I would suggest a more conservative bias is followed as a cautionary approach towards spending until the end of the first quarter, roughly October, November. And at that time, we can better determine the strength of our cash flow and whether additional strategies are needed to realign lowering spending with depressed revenues. For example, we've scheduled a number of proposed rate increases for January 2021, rather than beginning July 1st, which is traditionally what we've proposed. And this is to allow the recovery to be seen and felt and to allow further consideration of those changes if the conditions warrant. For example, if the economy hasn't improved. Additional actions that could be taken to conserve our finances would include continuing travel restrictions except for certificate required offsite training, extending hiring freezes for non-essential positions or more broadly, all positions, delaying construction projects and capital investment, and imposing employee furloughs, and in a worst case situation, reduction in forces. Those, generally, those are ideas, possible strategies. Most of those have not been implemented in this proposed budget. But again, I emphasize looking at the end of the first quarter to critically evaluate our cash flow position. And at that point, the status of receipts and revenues will offer us a better perspective and whether to cut a new fiscal path for the remainder of the fiscal year. Please note a significant difference in perspectives exists between this budget that you're going to hear in the next few moments, that data, than what was presented to you in February at the retreat. The data you received today is more granular, identifying items at approximately $10,000 or more. At the retreat, the data was focused more on major initiatives of $100,000 or more. So lastly, a second or subsequent workshop could be held at a time of your choice or at a strategic session if the majority of council so desires and has interest. And at this moment, I'd like to invite Lisa to begin her summary of the proposed spending plan for 2020-2021. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My presentation is going to consist of two major parts. The first part will include revenue trends, fund balance, and the debt schedule. We'll talk about all of the sources that we can rely on to be able to fund this year's budget for 2021. As Larry mentioned, the property tax and sales tax that we were originally anticipating back when we showed these slides at the retreat are a little different. For 2020, we still anticipate the same amount. The reason for that is a lot of that's already been collected, or there was that one-time discovery that we mentioned. So we're still projecting that we'll get that $21,100,000 in this slide. The 2021 budget, we did receive the estimate from the county for the assessed valuation. So that $3,396,000 is the newest number that they've just submitted to us. This is a 0.4% change from last year. The revenue collection we're projecting is only $20,497,000. The reason it's lower than the current year is that generally we can budget up to whatever our collection rate is. So as you know, we've reported in the past, our collection rate's been getting really, really strong. We're at like 99%. So we've been budgeting at 99%, but because of the COVID-19, with different people, claiming unemployment, all the business closings, we didn't feel comfortable using that aggressive of a projection. So we did scale that back. We used an estimated collection rate of 97.9%. We feel pretty good about the $20,497,000, but we will monitor this throughout the year to make sure that that's still a good estimate. Any questions on tax revenue? Oh, one thing to add, the county revaluation is planned for spring of 21, unless the COVID-19 changes something. As far as I know, they're still planning on that.
Lisa, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Here, in 2008, is there data telling what the collection percentage was when the economy tanked 2008, 2009?
Yes, we have that all in our old financial reports. I can get that to you and send it to you.
Well, I was just wondering, did we look back in that, using that historical data to come up with the 97% rate for 21?
I think we just tried to scale it back about 1%, and that's what it came up as.
Okay.
It wasn't really based on anything in particular, other than just trying to drop back at least by 1%. We felt good with that amount.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
No problem.
Lisa, I have a question for you.
Yes.
At the bottom, it says the assessed value does not include motor vehicles. Does that, in the revenue collection, does it include motor vehicle taxes in that number?
It does not. We collect about $1.7, $1.8 million worth of motor vehicles. I just don't have that in this projection. We're anticipating some reductions there. However, they're not reflected in this slide or in the budget numbers, actually. It should be enough that we can absorb, anything that we wouldn't collect.
So what's your projection for motor vehicle taxes?
We have 1.8 million in the budget for it per the county estimates. They do give us estimates on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sales tax collection. The 2020 number is the same number that we had talked about back at the retreat. We're anticipating $7 million. The reason that is the same is because there's a delay in receiving sales tax revenue. It takes about 3 months for it to go through the state and then come back to the city. So any collections like this month, April's collections, we won't see until July. So we won't really know the effects of this until we're into the new budget year. So it's really hard to try and react and project and know where we're going to go with this. We used some of the data that we got from the league. They gave 3 projections. They gave one that they considered as moderate, which actually showed some revenue growth. Then they gave one as severe, which was a decrease of 2.3%. And then they gave a really conservative projection that was a reduction of 3.2%. It's so hard to tell where we'll be. We just don't know. We thought, well, we'll go middle of the road and consider our loss to be around a severe loss. So we projected a 2.1% reduction in revenue. That's why we put that 6.8 million there for next year's revenue. We're really going to have to just watch this closely. If it comes in less than what our estimates are, we'll have to react and make some adjustments in September, October, once we really see, if everything's picking back up, if the businesses are reopening, or if we're, still in a slump. If this goes into another round 2 in the fall, that's going to really create some difficulties. It's kind of a guess and wait and see. I hate to say that, but there's no way to know where this can go. And we feel like that is a good estimate. It's a shame because originally at the retreat, we were expecting about 2% growth. And this is really going to be a strong, revenue to fund some areas, where police, fire, areas where we really needed some help with. Any questions on sales tax? Utility sales tax revenue. These are generated from tax on these utilities: electric, gas, telecommunications, cable. The electric and gas are temperature or weather driven. So again, they're kind of volatile. They're hard to project. If you look back over the history, some years are up, some years are down. We've maintained almost a flat projection. We're projecting a 0.6 change in revenue. So we grew it by only $20,000, but it'll still be a good revenue source for us. It will still generate, over $3 million here. Any questions in this one?
Lisa, this is Pete. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes.
Councilman McGee, are you still having issues seeing the slides, sir?
Yes, I am. Let's see. Pete, I'm not seeing any slides on the screen either. Of course, I have a hard copy, so I'm following along with that.
Up on the top left, there should be a switch to screen or switch to.
Screen share.
Yeah. Okay, that solved the problem.
Okay, great. Got you. Thank you.
Cool. Sorry, Mayor. Thank you, sir.
All right,
Great.
let's continue.
All right, so where else can we get money from to help meet our budget needs? One-time use money is available in our fund balance. The unassigned fund balance at March 31st was a little over 4.3 million. This is above and beyond the council's reserve policy, which currently has a reservation balance of $10,681,100. We can use this fund balance money to fund any one-time capital projects, whether they're new or replacement items. We can use it to fund projects for maintenance, roof repair. We just don't want to use it for anything that's going to be a recurring cost, such as personnel. A little bit about the history of fund balance. Again, the total fund balance unassigned in that middle column as of March 31st is a little over 4.3 million. Through the remainder of fiscal year 20, we anticipate having some excess collections in both ad valorem and sales tax. So that will increase our fund balance. We'll also have some savings in personnel costs. We have a hiring freeze right now. We know that's going to generate some savings. We're just unable to determine that amount at this time. But we know there will be something coming from that. So 5.2 million is our first estimate in unassigned fund balance. And we're proposing that we use almost 2.5 million of that unassigned balance to fund different items throughout the budget. As I go through the slides, you'll see the funding source listed on the right-hand side of the slide. It'll show operating money, which would be from ad valorem or sales tax or other revenue sources, or it'll say fund balance, which it'll be part of this 2.5 million that's listed on this slide.
Lisa,
Yes, ma'am.
how long is the hiring freeze till?
However long Larry has it in effect. I don't know if he,
Because there's no date set for it yet.
not yet.
Okay.
Lisa,
Yes,
on the downtown parking lot improvements, you're gonna be pushing that one back. I don't quite understand if you are or you're not on this particular sheet.
it is in the proposed budget, but we can push it back if council desires.
Yeah, I would think at least back to the fall, we see what impact that this is gonna have on our money.
Which parking lot are you speaking of, the downtown? Is this the one next to the railroad or which one?
This amount here was actually for some one-way. It'll be on the downtown slide when we get to it, but it's for the design of the one-way.
Well, it's not a parking lot then.
No, the money was set aside for the parking lot across the street in front of the senior center, the parking lot at the railroad crossing
Yes.
that we share with the county, and for a study of the downtown parking. I know Larry had designated this is the one-way conversion from this as well. I'm not sure that the 3 million will cover all of those projects, but the study to look at the downtown directional and parking and traffic flow, that's all underway right now. We wouldn't move forward on this until we've completed that study.
Okay. When you said parking, I thought you were talking about, I thought it said parking lot or somebody said parking lot.
That's what it says, downtown.
Yeah, it
park-
does. It says parking lot. That's what the original, I guess, the formal assignment was coined.
Okay, I didn't know if we was talking about the particular lot. What I addressed behind the courthouse near the railroad. I know the city and county was talking about doing that together. And I didn't know if that'd been pushed back or in fact it was a lot you were speaking of. That's why I questioned that.
Yeah, from what I understand, we haven't heard from the county if they've put any funding aside. So that's just on hold at this time.
Okay, that's good.
So, excuse me, was the consensus then to take that 3 million out?
It's still reserved. 1.5 million of it is for the parking lot in front of the senior center. And we've already used, I think the contract was for 357,000. We've used that toward that study that I mentioned to study the downtown parking. That contract is already started. However, it's not really progressing. They're waiting to have public hearings and get public input. They really can't do that with the current restrictions under COVID-19.
Wouldn't it be wise on stuff like that with the uncertainty we're facing now to push that back to the fall of the year to see if
We look at it.
we're gonna be okay with it?
I think it would be wise because there's too much uncertainty there.
Lisa,
Yes,
you hear me?
yes, I can. We can certainly do that. And we'd have to come back to council to award any kind of contract anyway. But yeah, we will make sure that that doesn't progress.
All right. Thanks.
Freddie Gordon here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I believe that if I'm right, but let me understand this, it is confusing as to the description of this 1.2 here as being parking lot improvements. I believe as you get forward in your presentation, they're going to see where that's not for parking lot improvements. That's for the two-way redirecting traffic, two ways on two streets. Is that not correct?
You are correct.
Okay, so then it'll come up again, guys, if y'all will maybe if you want to hold that. And I would strongly support that. We certainly don't need to go forward with a $1.2 million study with the economic times the way they are for two-way streets when you're going to have to spend tens of millions to do it. So
I agree, absolutely.
I agree too.
so maybe if we just let the slide go on, we'll get to that in the proper place.
Yeah. Okay.
Other funding sources, sometimes some of our debt will roll off and it'll create some bandwidth that can be used for other projects. We're on the upswing of debt payments at this time. For 2021, we're projecting an increase of a little over $1 million in debt service payments. Primarily, the addition of the senior center and the police headquarters are the bulk of that. We've budgeted for a partial year for next year. We hope to complete this financing over the summer. We're hoping that the request for proposals for bids will go out in July. That project's been progressing kind of slowly with the environmental concerns. We're also adding some amount of debt service for a replacement fire truck and the replacement financial system. All right, part 2 of the presentation. This part is broken up into a few different sections. We'll talk about the budget metrics, different amounts that we can keep in mind as we go through the presentation. I'll highlight the citywide initiatives. We'll go through the highlighted proposed changes by department. Those, as Larry mentioned, are anything new that's over $10,000. We'll also provide an update on the council priority items that were voted the highest priorities from the retreat, and then we'll discuss the remaining proposed budget schedule. 1 cent of the city's property tax rate will generate $344,263. This is just ad valorem, doesn't include motor vehicles, and this is based on the 2019 valuation. In order to generate $1 million of taxable value, in order to generate $6,000, $1 million in taxable value, that's all it generates. So if we want to spend $100,000, we need $16 million of taxable value. So when we see, different places coming online, we can kind of gauge, what kind of revenue they'll generate for the city. The citywide initiatives, as Larry mentioned, he is suggesting a 2% merit increase for all employees, a 2.5% COLA increase for all employees. This is delayed until January 1st. There is also an increase in the city contribution for health insurance of 7.2% as it was presented to council back in January. There's an increase in the city contribution for retirement of 1.2%. This is required by the state treasurer. It's not optional. We also have the air show still in the budget. Net of revenue, $50,000 is the cost to the city. We have outside agency funding that we received the recommendation for back at the General Services meeting a couple months ago. The total budget there is just over $357,000. We had an increase in economic development grants. There were quite a few that were awarded in the last couple of years. The biggest one was UTC Aerospace, but those new grants totaled $248,000 with a total budget of almost $864,000. And then of course we have the new debt service for the new financial software. All right, these are the department slides. For economic development, the first department included is $20,000. This funding is for services that are needed when a property is being considered for economic development. And it'll also cover some of the costs for the stormwater BMP at the spec building. Facility maintenance, we've included a $25,000 increase in HVAC replacements, and we've budgeted for 2 roof replacements, J. Ray Chute and the Winchester facility. We've excluded a position. The position was proposed to keep up with workload and schedule and keep up with scheduled landscaping maintenance. We've left out an increase to the ADA improvements. Tree replacements, some city hall parking lot amenities, which included bollards, benches, and trash cans. And we've also excluded the painting at the rec centers.
I have a question about the painting the rec centers. Is that the same budget line from last year, or did we paint rec centers last year with that same line item, or with another line item with regards to painting the rec centers?
I believe we put that one back in from what I can remember, and it was different areas. I know these were a 5-year rotation. The ones included in this particular amount were for Sutton, the exterior front, Winchester, the front and the exterior, and J. Ray Chute interior. I don't know if Tanya can comment to say what last year's amount was, or Brian.
I guess my question is, did we paint the rec centers last year for that money that we had budgeted for? And just wanted to know what the condition of the rec centers are for this year for the 13.5.
Yeah, Lisa, we did paint. We did have, and some of the rec centers were painted last year. I don't have that in front of me. I think that's in Eric's budget. But, and this was for, like you were saying, continue to paint other facilities. We do have them on a regular schedule for painting. So that's what this was going to include this year for rec centers that were identified that were not painted last year.
Lisa, if I may, the rec centers, 13.5, that was the number that was expended. And I think if I'm recalling, this has been moved to Parks and Rec's budget. I think the regular 5-year painting or intervals.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it was taken out of here and put there, or if it was taken out altogether.
I know it wasn't recommended for funding,
Okay.
but do you know if this year's painting was completed?
It has been completed.
Okay.
This year's painting has been completed.
Do we have money set aside for the murals and stuff for the rec centers, or was that going to be additional funding? I know that was kind of put on hold until we got some artists ready to do that.
That was minimum. That was only about $500, and we do have funds to proceed with that. As soon as everything gets, we can do that project.
Okay.
All right. The next, Finance Department. Oh, okay. Included in the Finance Department was some overtime for the new software implementation. Excluded was the request for an additional utility billing field technician to keep up with the growth demands, grant coordinator position, and increasing the warehouse clerk to manage the warehouses a little better. Those were excluded. HR had some new position requests as well that were not funded. Human resources manager, an analyst, and then an office expansion to house that staff. There's the same daily demand and succession planning were the purpose of the positions. Engineering and street department. Included and recommended is a multi-year project to pave the parking lots at the operations center. This is the general funds share. Also included are equipment replacements. This is all one item, a flatbed dump truck. Excluded are several positions, an admin assistant for additional demands, street maintenance workers for traffic control and the sidewalk program, construction inspector. We do have a lot of new subdivisions coming online. There's 5 active with 5 more in review. A street sign technician to increase to a 2-person crew. We've also eliminated the annual sidewalk maintenance funding for the year, restriping of the parking lots, the equipment shelters, downtown Monroe parking study. This is the parking lots and on-street parking. The pavement condition index survey, we usually do this every 3 years. It was last done in 2016. And we also cut out the additional resurfacing requests that Jim had that would give us a more robust resurfacing program and replace a lot, be more proactive in our repaving program.
So the downtown Monroe parking study, was that part of the money that you were talking about before?
No, this one's different. This was a different study altogether.
Lisa,
Yes.
back up to the top of the page, and I think I know the answer to this. On that equipment replacement, that 120,000, the power bill will take care of that completely. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good.
Yep, you're correct. Thank you for pointing that out.
Power, I sound like I'm saying power bill. Okay, I thought that was right, but I want to be sure. That's good.
Yeah, the grant, that's an allowable purchase under the grant.
That's good. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, Brian, if I may, a clarification on Councilman McGee's question. This 50,000 here was for a parking study of the downtown. That would include parking lots and on and off street parking structures would be part of that study. The earlier reference was the traffic study update that was discussed on a previous slide up at the front, the 357,888 that is currently underway. So you have one study, the traffic study update, and then this one, which was delayed, the parking study downtown. So hopefully that clears that up.
Yes, okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Planning and community development. We have excluded the request for a planner. They really need another one due to their increased volume, 13 new subdivisions. is what they're currently working on. And we've also delayed funding, this year's funding for the implementation of the Concord Area Redevelopment District. Code enforcement had requested some positions, an officer in the building division, building standards department needed an additional building inspector. Again, increased demand drive the need for additional personnel, and we were not able to fund those. The police department, we do replace police cars annually. The $599,000 there is for their annual replacement. That does equip all of the cars as well. We have delayed part-time officers. These were going to be for the elementary schools. We're going to pursue trying to get funding from the schools. We've also delayed the crime scene technician.
What is the officers for the school? That's not the the field training, not field training officer. Resource officer. That's not the resource officer you're talking about.
No, these were part-time positions in the elementary schools. We have resource officers in the middle and high schools.
I know we have resource officers. What kind of officers are we putting in the schools? I'm not familiar with that.
Brian?
Yes, Matt, can you hear me, Mayor? Yes,
Yeah.
sir. The school system actually had a grant to where they would reimburse the city for a part-time officer to work in the elementary schools. It's a new program that we're doing with the school system. So they actually had a grant to help offset some of the cost on that.
Was the grant not coming through now?
Yes, sir. They've got the grant. I just haven't been able to hire somebody to take their place yet.
So we got the grant. Why won't we fund this position then?
We don't. The school system has a grant. They actually would reimburse the city for that. I can move someone over there to cover the position, but the school system would reimburse me. Lisa's office handles the billing for every quarter.
So so I'm asking Lisa then, why won't we fund this position then if we got grant funding for it?
I wasn't aware these two were tied to a grant, the part-time.
Yeah, this is Larry. That's new information. A grant-funded position would have next to zero impact on our operating expenses, and to the extent there is a grant, then I can support and recommend the positions. But again, I didn't see the positions referenced on your slide as being the ones being referenced right now.
This grant runs out. Is this something the city going to have to pick up?
No, sir. It has nothing to do with the city, and maybe I kind of misspoke on that. It's not anything that we applied for. The school system applied for it, and they have funding for them to pay officers. So that's something that they've had, but with school being closed, we haven't sent anybody over there.
So if you will, Mayor and Council, if we can work that out and bring that forward separately. Yeah. Okay. Again, if there's an agreement and a possible funding element, whether it's a budget amendment or what have you, we can work through that separate from what's being presented here live.
Yeah, if they got the money, that's fine. If they got the money to do it with.
Yeah, then it would have little to no impact. We would certainly do that.
Okay.
There were also some requests in the police departments to increase supplies, to get some small equipment, uniforms, and overtime, and we were not able to fund those requests at this time.
Question, the uniforms for special forces teams, by us funding that, will that affect whether or not they are safe?
Will that affect their safety, Brian?
No, ma'am. I couldn't hear Miss Anthony real well. It would not affect their safety. We're we're actually looking at having new officers join the force, the field force and special operation teams, and that would be replacement uniforms.
Okay. Move on to fire department. We have funded equipment replacements for the fire department. That 140,000 includes a medic vehicle, radios, and cameras. We were not able to fund the positions, the fire station captain or the fire shift safety and training captains. First three were for station number 6, and the second three were to aid the battalion chief and also provide safety and training to the staff. We did not increase any of the part-time hours for those folks either. We did not fund professional development funding for certification. A lot of travel, may not happen if COVID-19 restrictions are still in effect. The fencing for the training grounds or the storage buildings, that was to store their trailers. We did not do phase 3 of the education incentive or the Medic 6 pickup truck. We did not fund overtime or the fire station renovations at stations 1, 2, and 5. We did not fund the fire station 3 facility needs assessment study or the fire engine for station 6. This fiscal year 2021, we also had to assume the full budget for the 3 firefighters that fell under the SAFER grant. The last year of the grant is fiscal year 20. So that revenue stream drops off and we assume the full ticket next year. The same happened in the police department. There are 4 officers. We're assuming the full cost in FY21. The last year for reimbursement for the COPS grant was in FY20 as well. In the IT department, we were able to fund the second part. We funded half last year and half this year of the intrusion detection and prevention system. This system monitors the network for malicious activity and then attempts to block it. We also covered the annual maintenance for 2 of the programs that we already own, and equipment replacements. That 300,000 is the replacement of a core switch, which is one of the backbones of our computer network. It's no longer supported, the one that we have. We need to replace it. We were not able to fund their position for a system administrator, which would have addressed network maintenance needs. Parks and Recreation. We have funded from fund balance the grant match for the Belk Tonawanda Master Plan Phase 1B. This is the project for the splash pad, the shelter, the restroom, outdoor fitness station. That 425,000 represents a grant match. We'll be applying for the part of grant for the rest of the project funding. We were also able to fund the fence replacement and repairs. We funded the annual contribution for greenway construction and equipment replacements. Those are mowers, a truck, and a trailer.
Lisa, on the fence replacement and repairs, where is that located at?
Tanya, can you help me out?
Yeah, I can. Some of that goes for the cemetery It'll be in both cemeteries.
Yeah, cemeteries.
And then Dickerson ball fields. And then just some general repairs in miscellaneous parks.
Okay, thank you.
This is Franklin McGee. On the Greenway construction, Tanya, while we have you, are there any way we can add some quarter-mile markers on the greenways with any of that funding, or is there any funding allotted to kind of add some markers to the greenways?
Yeah, I think we can use this funding for that. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can look at doing that. We did that in the downtown area with those medallions that mark it every quarter of a mile. We can do other greenways. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
With the equipment replacement, $161,000, what type of equipment are we talking about?
That was mowers, a truck, and a trailer. The biggest mower, let me see, was a Toro. It was a $70,000 mower. It must be one of the big ones that we mow the parks with. And then a slope mower was $48,000.
And Lisa, just a general notation while we're talking about equipment replacements. I noticed that a lot of that in these budget, it just said equipment replacements. If we could have like the detail of that in the future, that would be better.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Please, on the Belton Water Master Plan, grant match, $425,000. Would you explain that to me? Is that grant match going to be part of the 425 or in addition to it?
The 425 is our match. Tanya, what's the total funding on that grant?
It's a 50% match, so the total cost of the project's estimated at $850,000.
$850,000.
That's total cost, estimated cost of the project, and we would be applying for a $425,000 match, and then along with this $425,000 that would be city funded.
All right, excluded and delayed. There was a request for a position. This position was going to be used to pick up trash at the park facilities, custodial duties at for the picnic shelters and restrooms. We were not able to fund additional Christmas tree lighting attractions, a new Kubota utility vehicle. The Leland cypress trees needed replacement at Dickerson. We delayed that. Drinking fountains in the parks are not going to get replaced. The bleachers are not getting replaced at Sunset Park or the basketball courts resurfacing. Dickerson restroom renovation. Creft Park playground equipment and shade structure was delayed, as well as the Winchester picnic shelter.
I have a question about the drinking fountains in the parks. Is there any way that we can add some fountains in the parks or phase those in some way so that the kids and everybody can have water available at the parks when they're out playing?
Was this money to do that, or was this a replacement, Tanya?
It's money to actually phase back in water fountains at parks. This would have included a water fountain at Creft Park and also one at Belton and Sunset Park. There were 3 parks included in this money.
I think we need to look at that. I mean, with people being outside, especially nowadays, I think we need to offer. I think that's the one great amenity that we can add to our parks by adding hydration at our parks.
Okay.
Excuse me, Tanya Marion here. I thought there were water fountains at Tonawanda up at the shelter.
Originally, we did have a water fountain there. That was years ago. Those had been removed by previous administration due to vandalism at for the water fountains in all of our parks. We were asked to relook at that to try to put water fountains back in the parks. So this was, like I said, the funding was to try to put water fountains back at these 3 parks.
Well, I agree with Councilman McGee on that. I think for that small amount, I think having water is very important for people. I know everybody walks around with their water bottle or whatever, but it needs to be available, I think.
I do notice a lot of parents and senior and groups have been taking barrels of water to some of the parks. Because, the kids playing, they get too hot. So if we could go ahead and include that in, that would be great. But I have a question about outdoor events at Tonawanda Park. That's only for nonprofit organizations?
Yes, ma'am. That's been the standard operating procedure. We just wanted to get that identified in our budget. In our fee schedule. We do not allow any groups that are not a nonprofit to host events down there open to the public, because what we had found that we had folks coming in and offering things and they were generating a profit for themselves personally to do that. And the only way that we could figure to be able to eliminate that was to allow that for nonprofits only.
Okay, so like family reunions, things like that, that's out.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't
No. These are events open to the public where they would advertise large special events that would be open to the public. It has nothing to do with like family reunions or any kind of picnics of that type. Those are still permitted.
And I guess to be clear, like events that would be advertised to the public type events, right, Tanya?
That's correct.
Got you.
Okay, so is there a consensus to add the drinking fountain in the parks back into the budget? I heard 3.
Yes.
Yeah,
James.
that'd be, yeah.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon, I didn't hear you, sir.
Who?
Freddie.
Yes, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Not a yet.
Okay, well, the only reason I would vote against it is the fact that they've been there before, and every time we put them out, they're destroyed. And consequently, I think I might have been on the board, council when this was done before. So I don't think I support that, no, because things like that just consistently get destroyed. And it ends up costing you a lot more than $15,000 to put a fountain out there. And so I can't support that. I'm sorry.
Okay, Councilman McGee.
Oh, absolutely. I support it. And I think we do need to support that. I know things have changed, but I don't think a situation that happened years ago should negate something that we're trying to do to add an amenity out at our parks. So I certainly support it.
Councilman James. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Holloway.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm in favor of it.
Commissioner, Councilman Desire.
Yes.
And what's that?
I have supported. I think it's cool not to have any water out there, and maybe a health issue.
Okay, that passed 6-1. Did you get that, Bridget? I guess she's listening. I've got a record of it anyway. Okay.
We'll add that back in.
Okay, good. Very good.
Yes, sir, I got it.
All right, and then the fee schedule changes we discussed are at the bottom of that slide there. Next, the golf course. We were able to include the bunker and tee renovations. This is an annual amount that we're putting toward that effort. We also have equipment replacements there. This is a truck and a tractor. We needed to exclude from the budget a greens roller. We were wanting to renovate the slope at the pro shop and pave the equipment storage and parking area at the maintenance shop, but we're not able to this year. Fee schedule changes. We're proposing a increase of $1 for cart fees and green fees for each membership type. And we're also proposing between a $5 and $10 increase in tournament fees.
How do we compare to other golf courses in Monroe and in the area in Union County with those fees?
Those fees bring us very much in line with what other golf courses in the area are charging that are similar to us. So that was kind of one of the purposes. We did a survey of all the area courses, and we were kind of, we were $5 to $10 lower. 5 to 10 is based on the type of tournament that it is, whether it's a shotgun start or it's a tee time start.
Right.
That brings us in line and keeps us competitive with the other golf courses.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Especially with the good job that y'all do down there, we have to make sure that we are competitive with the other golf courses in our area. So I get that.
We're also proposing a change to the facility rental fees. We'd like to add an hourly rate for partial day rentals Monday through Thursday. We haven't done partial day rentals in the past, but we see an opportunity to gain some revenue there for people that would like to do setups the day before, or just a partial day meeting. Maybe we'll be able to increase some of that rental time that previously was not rented because they had to rent the whole day.
If I could clarify, Lisa, just a little bit on that one. We did have a hourly rate, but what we were only allowing with that hourly rate was for meetings. If you would come in and you wanted to do a 4-hour, we would permit that, but you could not leave anything set up. What we were getting was a lot of requests for folks to set up the day prior for something that might be happening, especially for a breakfast meeting, something that was happening very early the next day. A lot of those meetings were happening on the Monday through Friday time period. And we weren't permitting that because what it did was it basically killed a rental the day before, a full day rental. But what we're finding is that in our research, we would not lose very much revenue at all because we don't have a lot of rentals Monday through Friday unless they're just kind of a partial day kind of deal. So we wanted to open that up and hope to generate some additional revenues by allowing folks to come in and rent it for a few hours the day before to set up for, like I said, for maybe possibly a meeting that might be starting at 7 a.m. the next day.
Any other questions?
I have one. This increased the member card fees and green fees $1. What if it were increased to $2? That would double the revenue to about $33,000. And if you had $33,000, you could renovate the slope in the pro shop.
Yeah, we could certainly do that. The dollars came into it when we did our survey, looking at the other courses. That was just bringing us up to what they were charging. It's why we kind of held it there. But I'm in agreement. $2 more for a round. If that gained us the ability to, be able to do another project, that would be fine. But basically, that was based on the survey that we done, just bringing us in line with some of the other courses.
Okay.
Okay. Monroe Aquatics and Fitness Center. We were able to include an upgrade from part-time to full-time for the front desk coordinator position. This is to supervise the 40+ part-time employees that manage that front desk area. We're also purchasing membership software since the current is no longer supported and not compatible with Windows 10. We're converting the Parks and Rec offices to a massage area. This can only happen once the Parks and Rec folks would move out. We're thinking of putting them in the senior center. And we have funded equipment replacements, which include treadmills, HVAC, water park grates, hot water boiler, and a water park lift.
Now that comes from fund balance from the Aquatic and Fitness Center, correct?
The equipment replacements, yes, that's the Aquatic and Fitness Center fund balance. We're also proposing a fee schedule change. We would like to add membership addition or deletion processing fee. This would be when anybody changes a current membership, adds somebody on their membership or deletes them back off. This fee would be $5 per change. And we also would like to add a membership freeze fee. This freeze fee would put an account on hold for 6 months to a year, and that fee would be $10.
Lisa, are other fitness centers making this change as well?
Councilman James, this is Kathy Henderson. Actually, we're one of the few that's not doing that currently. We've done changes and additions and deletions for no cost all these years, in addition to allowing our members to freeze up to 6 months for no cost. Almost every other fitness facility recoups some of that cost, and it costs us a lot of money trying to make these changes as they come in. In the month of June alone, we do about 1,100 additions and changes to memberships. So that takes a lot of time on our admin staff. And so we're hoping that in addition to bringing in this little bit of revenue, it might make people think a little bit harder about making a change. Because they, they make changes, add on, take off, add on, take off. So this will give them a little bit of a second thought there. Plus, the generation of this revenue is going to help us pay for this membership software program we're going to have to purchase this year.
Question about the $10 for a membership freeze. And my question is, if a person freezes their membership, that suggests to me that there's some problem or something different in their life. Could that not be $5 as well?
Well, it could be. What we find is that in August, after our water park closes, we have a tremendous amount of members freezing their membership until the next spring, and when we get ready to open the water park again. So we generally get no money for that, and this is kind of a placeholder for them to hold their membership in a suspended state until next May happens and they reinstate their membership to come back to the water park. So that's typically the type of freezes that we get throughout. Probably 75% of our freezes happen in the month of August in the year. But in answer to the question, we could do $5. We felt like $10 was a fair fee to suspend a membership for 6 months to 12 months. So, the family or the membership is saving anywhere from $350 to $750, depending on their membership. So $10 to do that's not a whole lot of money, is what we thought.
I have a question too regarding the freeze. Now, will they have to pay to have their accounts unfrozen, or?
No.
Okay, it's just one time.
Right. And we have, added a few exceptions to the addition and deletion as well. We're not going to charge members for changing information like addresses and things like that, just if they're adding on people or taking off people to their membership.
Okay, any other questions on the fitness center? Monroe, Union County Economic Development. This is the fund that handles our joint agreement with the county. They are in need of a replacement truck, and that is funding from their shared funds, fund balance. They have some carryover from year to year. and they've developed a small fund balance, and they're using that to replace their vehicle. Downtown Monroe would like to institute a Pedlet private pilot program. This has been included in the budget. What this does is it creates a barrier between the road and the sidewalk in the areas where there's outdoor seating for dining. It creates planters, so it's some beautification, and it also creates a safety barrier for the patrons. There's funding in here for the Morgan Windsor Alley, just for the property acquisition and the design phase. The construction phase is not included at this time. We've also included funding for the downtown master plan. The last update of the plan was done in 2008. It's in need of an update. And this is that 1.2 million that we talked about a little earlier. The one-way street conversion design. This 1.2 million was an estimate based on the original traffic study from 2009. As we mentioned before, we're updating that traffic study right now. We have the contract with American Engineering, but due to COVID, they've been delayed in working on that project. As soon as we can get some public input, we'll be able to get moving on that. We would need to finish the study before we would move forward with the one-way street conversion design.
Lisa, I wanted to provide one clarification. We have not taken the contract forward to City Council yet for the two-way conversion with American Engineering. That's slated to go in May.
Oh, that was one of the ones that was on the agenda that got canceled. Okay.
Yeah, it's slated to go in May. So we have not taken that forward yet.
Okay.
Lisa, I would put all of that on hold for 1 year based on what we're going through right now.
If you put that in the motion, I'll second it.
I'll
but I
so
agree
put it
with
in
that.
motion.
Everything is just
I'll put it in motion.
Okay, I have a motion.
second.
Lynn, second, Ms. Anthony, Freddie, okay,
I have a question before I vote. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Lisa, regarding the downtown master plan update, was that also including the parking lot at the Science Center? That study, Brian?
No, that was not. That's a separate contract.
Okay.
This is just the master plan update.
Correct. We're underway with that, in process with that contract right now. So
okay.
That's not this money.
Okay, sounds good.
Councilman McGee? Yeah, or nay?
Yes.
Councilman James?
Yes.
Councilman Holloway?
Yes.
And Kazire was yes, Kilgore is yes. Okay, that will pass. I'll be delayed for the year or whatever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The property acquisition for the Belk-Tonawanda Gateway was delayed. This is that little piece right under the railroad trestle.
Okay.
Stormwater fund. We were able to include the addition of a civil engineer. This person will assist with drainage concerns and the illicit discharge detection and elimination program of the city's stormwater permit. The phase 2 permit is a permit that requires us to improve water quality, and this will do that. This person will focus on that. We were able to include money for small construction projects. These are larger, more complex projects that would be contracted out to private crews.
What is that construction?
It'll be various projects. Jim, are there any slated that you know of, or is it just? how is that funding allocated for those contracts?
We have not developed any projects for this funding at this time. We're waiting to see if we can get it funded, and then we would pick projects that would take, multiple days to complete by a private contractor. The intent is to allow our construction crew in the field to focus on, small 1 day, 1.5 day projects to get those accomplished, and make the more complex ones, let them be handled by a private contractor.
Okay.
We were also able to fund a water quality project. This is an annual expense that funds the construction of stormwater control measures at the various locations in the watershed. We were also able to fund illicit discharge detection and outfall identification. A consultant will perform this for each watershed, and this meets the city's permit requirements. We are funding a stormwater asset management program. This software would manage the horizontal assets and the condition of them. Awnings for the truck wash facility to stop the rainwater from going into the city sewer. And we've funded equipment replacements. This is one item, a 2-ton flatbed truck. A fee schedule change is proposed. As Larry mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we've delayed the fee schedule increase, the rate increase, until January 1st. We're proposing to raise the residential rate from $4.50 to $5 per month. The last rate increase for stormwater was back in 2014. This rate increase will help enable staff through the addition of the engineer position to continue to meet compliance efforts. It'll provide the expected level of customer service by keeping the complaints within a 6 to 8 month period, for being addressed. And it'll expand our program to meet the requirements for the phase 2 permit, which will improve water quality. And it will also allow the city to be proactive rather than reactive with illicit discharge programs, which is what DEQ is really looking for different organizations to do.
Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll direct this to Jim. Jim, on your dump truck, can I not be put off for 1 more year based on where we're at?
Yes, sir, we could. It's a 2009 and it qualifies for replacement. One reason why we left it in the budget was because we were nervous about trying to extend it 1 more year. We were afraid that we may start having issues with it. It has had some in the past.
We could save, it's going to help us. So you don't mind, I'd like to make the motion that we at least put that replacement of the dump truck off for 1 more year.
What kind of issues you having with it now, Jim? Is it okay, or what's the issue?
Sometimes it has transmission issues, just various things. It's an older truck.
Okay.
And the fund balance that it's coming from would be the stormwater fund balance, not the general fund balance.
So I'll take that off. Answer my question, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, let me ask a question about the vehicles in general that we got requested in the budget. Is that something that we have the garage look at and make a suggestion to fund these trucks that need to be repaired or replaced?
We do. They have a scoring system that they use, and they score different points for all different reasons: appearance, mechanical issues. And if they score over a certain amount, then they get slated for replacement. So if they score too low, then we delay their replacement or keep that vehicle in the fleet for another year.
And do we move vehicles around to other departments to use as well?
Sometimes, yes. If there's a need in another department, we can, fund that need with something that we have in the fleet. We do. A lot of the vehicles that we are rolling out of the fleet, though, are way past their useful life. They're ready to go.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other questions on stormwater? The water and sewer fund. We have quite a few items that were included, recommended. We have a position, it's electrical instrumentation and mechanical equipment specialist. That's a mouthful. This person would help keep up with corrective and preventative work on the critical electrical and instrumentation and mechanical systems at the water and wastewater facilities. The share of the Operations Center parking lot, the multi-year project, that's the water wastewater share in this budget. We have money in here for contracted materials. This is an annual increase that we're funding every year. This is to meet the renewal and replacement goal of replacing 1% of our infrastructure each year. Materials. For new meter sets, we have more demand. We're estimating 150 meter sets next year. We need to refurbish the street flusher truck. The streets direct cost for new taps, again, increase in the number of taps due to residential development. Contracted materials and labor. This is another 1% for annual increase. This is the contractor work. This is stuff that we contract out from our construction division. We need a SCADA system update. It's due for replacement and upgrade. Tree clearing at Lake Monroe Dam. During the last inspection, DEQ had suggested that we clear some trees out at the point there. It'll also beautify the area. Replacement of turbidity meters. This is to ensure proper plant operation. We need some additional bulk liquid storage and several replacements. The biggest item here is a jet truck for $425,000 and a dump truck for $98,000. And then the rest of the work being done is on different elements of the system. The coating on the sediment basins is $500,000. Membrane on diffusers and clean out basins were the two other items in that number. Any questions?
Yes, on the equipment replacement. The rest of the equipment in bad shape, it couldn't last a year.
I believe they need, I think the jet truck was starting to have issues and the dump truck. Russ, do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. Ms. Anthony, we worked with the garage on all these selections. Several of them have been pushed back previous years. So when the garage believes it is the appropriate time to avoid more expensive repairs, then we do go ahead and include them in the budget. So the more expensive item is the large jet truck. That's the truck we have to have to meet our state legal mandate. We have to show records of jet cleaning 10% of our sewer system per year. So we rely on that truck a lot to meet that regulatory goal. So that one would be a little bit harder to push back. There is one dump truck in here, but it's 15 years old. It's had transmission problems. It's difficult to, fund expensive repairs when a replacement would, give a better service life and also really long-term be more cost effective. We'd be glad to look at any of them, but we do go through quite a process with the garage to defer them as long as we can without putting them in the budget.
Do we have a expected hire date for that position? Because I noticed with stormwater, you had January 1st of 2001.
This one is 7/1.
It's 7/1.
Correct.
For clarity, going back to the equipment replacements regarding vehicles, is it safe to say that we are going by the recommendation from the garage on whether we include these vehicle replacements in our budget? Is that the protocol for all of our vehicle replacements that's in our budget? Because if that's the case, then
Yes,
if
that is the protocol.
okay. So the garage is recommending all the vehicle replacements for the ones that are included in our budget currently.
That's correct.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Water and Sewer Fund continued their fee schedule changes. Per the 15-year rate model, we have been increasing water and sewer at 3.2% per year. Because of the COVID-19, we've delayed the rate increase from July 1st to January 1st for next fiscal year. We're also increasing administrative and non-construction fees based on the Consumer Price Index. And we're increasing capacity fees and construction related fees based on the Construction Cost Index. Any questions here? Electric Fund. Go ahead.
The 7.5 or some number that we're supposed to have gotten through the, wasn't it electric fund, something through the group that runs electrical, what are they called?
Oh, NCMPA 1.
Electricity.
Larry, didn't we get something from Electric Cities? I don't know if
This is Larry. There is a I think a refunding of bonds that has happened over the last few years, that and a return of some principal that was received. I think we brought that before council, 6 to 9 months ago. So there isn't additional monies that we're anticipating, not a bulk amount. Rate increases that Electric Cities is creating. I'm not sure the timing. Dave may be able to speak to that, but in terms of our cost of energy, those are forecasted out over the next decade or two. I don't remember the specific time frame. We had anticipated using those savings to not necessarily lower our rate, but to sustain our rate at a particular level and forego an increase where we otherwise might have needed an increase. And David, if you can maybe amplify that or clarify.
Yes, sir, that is correct. We did receive a refund of our capital asset fund from the North Carolina Municipal Power Agency, number one, somewhere in the $8 million range. And like Larry said, we put that aside in a rate stabilization fund to take care of any potential increases. The projections right now are that our power costs will not increase from the power agency until 2023 at the earliest. And again, we're going to use that refund in our capital asset to offset some of those increases as long as we can.
Thanks.
Okay. As a matter of fact, while we're talking about that one big item in the middle of the page where it says reserved for future capital assets is the funding source. That money that we got back from Electric Cities is funding that project, the US 74 widening from Dickerson to Rocky River Road, where we'll have to relocate the electric infrastructure for that road project.
Did the legislature not a year or two ago change some kind of law? I'm not sure which way it went, but something where they would pay a percentage of the impact that the cities would incur on these projects such as this. how did that go, Mr. Attorney, if you recall what I'm talking about?
No, Mayor, I think there may be an issue with some of the utility related projects. There was some sort of sharing or at least cost burden share, but we'll be happy to take a look at that and get an answer for you if that's something that you would like to know more about.
I can't remember exactly how the project ran, but it was something that the state was going to do or was to vote on, where the cities and these projects came up, they would have some type of funding to move or help move these utilities and stuff. I'm not sure if that passed. I thought it did, but anyway, if you check on that, that'd be great. That might could help us on this if that'd be the case.
We'll take a look, Mayor, and if we can find anything, we'll report back.
Is this old Charlotte Avenue they're talking about widening?
If I could jump in, sir, they're planning to widen Highway 74 from Dickerson Boulevard all the way to Rocky River to make it 6 lane instead of 4.
Yes.
And we'll have a significant amount of electric infrastructure that will have to be moved. And as far as the DOT assisting with the relocation costs, they will assist us if our facilities are outside of their encroaching in their easement. Unfortunately, all of our facilities along 74 are encroaching in their easement, so we are required to pick up the entire cost.
Okay, maybe that was the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
I have a question about the operating and utilities, especially with the delay of cutting utilities, people not being able to pay, one if they don't have their jobs. With all this, and I'm seeing all this, the items coming from the operating budget, what will we do about the funding? I'm saying if these revenues go down and stuff, how we would fund these?
Well, I'll jump in on that, Lisa, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
You know, the first thing we'll do if we start seeing a significant decrease in revenues is we will suspend all capital improvement projects, which will put several $1 million, free up several $1 million that we can use for operating expenses. And again, we do have the refund that we received from the power agency last year that we can use to offset additional expenses. We're not seeing, or it's really too early to tell at this point, what kind of decrease in revenues we can expect from this COVID situation. We looked at the revenues for the month of March, and there was really no significant difference to indicate that we would see any reduction in revenues. Revenues were down about 1% from the same time period last fiscal year. And a lot of that can be blamed on the weather. We can't really say that it was due to the COVID crisis. We should have a better idea of what the impact will be at the end of April.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other items that are included in their budget is a position for a natural gas engineering compliance manager. This is actually a split. We had a design engineering manager that served both electric and gas. We've split this into 2 positions because we've been unable to fill it for several years. It's hard to find somebody with a skill set in both of those areas, but we're able to split it out and get somebody that specializes in each of those areas. We've been using some contract service for this. So this will actually save us money because we won't have to contract these services out. We also need to purchase field collection data software, fiber optic map updates, substation transformer bushings, these are replacements, substation battery testing equipment, new line test equipment, a new dump trailer. We're replacing the oil separator systems for substations. This is a standards requirement. We have new subdivision construction, and a future industrial park. This is the cost of the infrastructure in both of those. We're extending the 35 kV circuit from the airport to Rocky River. We're taking a proactive approach to exploring options for AMI metering solutions. We have annual costs to replace and retire the uptown vault switches and cables and the old underground primary. This is just maintenance items. These are annual contributions to that effort. SCADA systems upgrade. This is just for electric and gas. We are purchasing additional storage. This is a facility for storage, meter calibration, and testing. This is going to be a cost share with natural gas, so you'll see it again on that slide. We have annual contributions for substation wildlife protection and additional rock at the substation yards. We're doing substation flooding remediation to keep water out of the substations. And electric has 3 pieces of equipment being replaced. The biggest items, well, the 3 biggest items, I should say, that are being replaced are the knuckle boom crane for $275,000, a backhoe, $100,000, and a trencher for $100,000.
I've got a question, please. On the storage, did we look into using the old community shelter? Perhaps is it large enough to do what we need?
David?
We did not look at that. And to be perfectly honest, that was not a consideration at the time. We actually started budgeting funds for this last year, I believe. And we had looked at a facility that was for sale on Ashcraft Avenue, but that facility did not meet our needs. We're basically, we're in the shopping mode trying to determine what's going to be the best use of that money to accomplish what we need to accomplish with it. So we certainly can look at the old community center.
That would be good, David, because it's there and it's paid for. So that'd be good.
Well, we like paid for.
Yes.
A question, the future industrial park, where is that at?
That is off of Sutherland Avenue between Morgan Mill and East Avenue, I believe. It's a vacant lot, basically an empty field at this point in time, and it goes all the way back to Stafford Street Extension.
Okay.
Okay, if no more questions, there are a couple of fee schedule changes that were requested. This is to increase the renewable energy portfolio standards reps charge, as we refer to them. It's for residential customers. It increases it from 72 cents to 77 cents per month. This is a pass-through cost. So NCMPA bills us for this cost of renewable energy research and development, and we're just passing the cost on to the customer. So we collect it and give it to them. Natural gas fund. We have included and recommended a new walk-behind plow or trencher to assist with service installs. We have tracking and traceability equipment and software for federal compliance. Contracted services. This is a leak survey where they go out and identify leaks. Subdivision fund. This is to construct pipelines and new subdivisions. NCDOT roadway relocations. This 600,000 is specifically for Highway 74. Industrial park, same industrial park. It's putting in the infrastructure at that location. AMI metering solutions. This is for the replacement of aging transmitters. The transmitters send the readings to our truck when we drive by. It's time to replace those. Transmission pipeline integrity management assessment. This is a federal requirement. We're required to have that assessment. SCADA system update. This is a cost share with electric. It's the upgrade of the gas and electric system. Additional storage, as we discussed previously. Distribution integrity management program. This is a risk evaluation and remediation. Revenue-based expansions. This is new pipeline that we're putting in the ground. When we look at expanding the system, we calculate making this money back within 8 years. So if we can't make the money back within 8 years, then we really don't consider that project feasible. We have an annual cost, the next 3, annual pipeline replacement to replace aged pipe, annual cathodic protection remediation and replacement, and annual system reinforcement projects. The last one is to improve delivery and provide redundancy and fix weaknesses in the system. And the 2 equipment replacements that are included in that 110,000 are a mini excavator for 90,000 and a leak detector for 20,000.
So Lisa, are these one-time expenditures?
A lot of them are, some of them, there are ongoing projects. So like the pipeline replacement, the cathodic protection remediation, system reinforcements. We contribute to those every year. They're ongoing efforts. So we put a little bit of funding in each of those annually. We funded those from the natural gas fund balance this year.
Okay.
And next is the solid waste fund. The only thing proposed here is a fee schedule change. This was an incremental increase that was approved by council last year on June 4th. It was the increase to cover the contract costs with Race Pro that had gone up when we awarded the contract. We are increasing the monthly residential pickup from 85 cents. It goes from 1960 to 2045. All the other monthly charges, small commercial and the other classifications, are going up by 75 cents. This rate increase is effective July 1st as originally planned. We looked at delaying it. We're just not able to. There's not enough money in this fund to be able to do that. Charlotte Monroe Executive Airport. We have 2 items included. We're increasing building repair and maintenance. This will allow them to rehab the counters and cover maintenance on the hangar doors and fuel pumps. And will also allow them to replace a vehicle that is aged. We have delayed the awning cover for mobile fuelers, paving of their parking lots, and the Quonset building demolition. And that was the last of our departments. Next, we're looking at the priorities that were set back at the retreat. When council voted, we put your votes into 3 priority lists. If it received 7 votes, it became a priority 1 item. The ERP software received a unanimous vote to move forward. We did fund that in fiscal year 20. The tournament facility is a big project. We're just not able to fund that yet. Priority 2 items, each of these received 6 votes. The Morgan Windsor Alley, we've included the property acquisition and design. And as I mentioned before, we have not funded the construction portion. That would be funded later. We did not fund the Belt Tonawanda property acquisition, the piece right under the trestle. Ongoing sidewalk maintenance, the annual allocation for that was not funded. And we had a request for the playground equipment. I think it was at Sunset. It was not funded. Priority 3 items received 5 votes. The downtown master plan update is funded. We had 2 facilities that were requested to be re-roofed. We funded both of those. And we did not fund the implementation of the Concord Avenue master plan. This year's allocation for that. Any questions on any of these items?
Lisa,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
we had our budget meeting. We have not been throwing a curve with this virus. I would personally think that the $2.6 million on software ought to be put off 1 year so we know exactly where we stand on issues. We don't need to be jumping in over our head. That's just my personal opinion.
Can we do it? I mean,
We've already entered into the contract with the software company.
Yeah.
Okay,
We did back in March.
the acquisition of the Morgan Windsor Alley, $125,000 to hold that back.
Yeah, I hold everything else back. I mean, that's only been fruitful with taxpayer money.
We can hold back the Morgan Windsor Alley and the downtown master plan. I don't know if I'd recommend the roofs. I think they're leaky and in need of replacement.
No, the roof need to be replaced. That's a different matter.
What roof is that? What building? What building is that roof?
That was for 2 roofs.
There's, let's see, let me look back. One is the Dickerson Gym and the other is that we really can't delay on those.
They need to go out.
They need to be done.
Yeah, it was the J-Ray shoot, Jim.
Yeah, J-Ray Shoot, that's it. J-Ray Shoot and Dickerson Gym. And from what I was understanding earlier in the downtown, when we were through that, everything that was in that budget was put on hold for a year. So the Morgan Alley nor the downtown master plan was recommended for funding this year.
Just a quick question regarding the software. We had a software request from the Aquatic Center. Can these other departments not use this new ERP software?
The software for the Aquatic Center is geared just for use at that type of facility. That software is used by a lot of YMCAs. This particular financial software does not have an application that the Aquatic Center could use.
Okay.
It's not real.
Doesn't have a module, in other words, then.
Yeah.
10-4.
What did you say about the Morgan Windsor Alley?
We would delay that.
Yeah, I make a motion that we hold that up a year.
I'll second, but I think
it was my understanding when we were going through the downtown slide that everything on the slide that was recommended would be held off for a year. So if I mistook that, then I could be wrong, but that was what I heard council recommend, and it went vote by vote, and it was evidently unanimous. It took out the Pedlet program, Morgan Windsor Alley, the acquisition, the design. It took out the downtown master plan. It also took out the one-way street conversion. So nothing recommended in downtown was funded. It was to be held off 1 year.
Freddie Gordon here. I don't recall that.
Yeah, I understood it to just be the 1.2 million for the one-way street conversion.
That's what I recall. That's what I recall.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what, this is Larry, that's what I understood was just the study that was coming to council in May, and then the subsequent design. The other items were moving ahead, unless the discussion of council now is to defer the master plan and delay the acquisition of the Morgan Windsor Alley.
That's a motion.
Yeah. Okay, I have a motion.
Could I have a comment before we go to that, please?
Yes.
On the downtown master plan, I think it was stated earlier, that basically it hasn't been up. I have had a lot of people suggest to me that needs to go through. There's nothing been changed on 2008. And,
right.
So it's getting age, and, everything you hear is our citizenry is concerned about our downtown and the direction it's going in and what we're trying to accomplish there. I mean, we've already spent a lot of money on the downtown area. I can't believe we wouldn't want to spend some money now to update our plan and tell us where we need to go for whatever it is the next 5 or 10 years.
Could I make a suggestion that with the concern on that expenditure and similar ones, we could bring it to council in the December-January timeframe when we have a better view of our cash flow. And if our cash flow in the general fund where this would be funded is anemic, then we could certainly delay it until a subsequent year. But as one or two of you have mentioned, it is there is a lot of interest in seeing the plan updated. It has got age on it, and I would ask that that council please consider supporting it being done, but maybe with the idea that it not be initiated or acted on as a contract until the December-January timeframe.
I so move that.
Right. Larry.
Sure.
You talked about that. You talked about the property design. You also talked about the master plan.
I was just my remarks just then were just focusing on the master plan.
Okay, but the motion is just about the alley.
Let me say something about the property and the property and design. I'm wondering, Morgan Alley. We've talked about doing Morgan Alley so it complement downtown with a theater or science. If we postpone that, of course, if we need to, we can, and we should. But I'm just saying, this is something, if we put off another year, the price may or may not go up, number one. Number two, that's going to put us 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, because if we put off that next year and buy it next year, then we're not going to do the construction for another year. We may wind up 3 or 5 years down the road if we don't make some move now on part of it. Now, I'm just throwing that out there for discussion. Brian, what is your take on that?
I agree with you, Mayor.
Well, Mayor, I think the momentum's there. We've done a lot of work downtown. A project like that would keep it moving forward, at least have the design ready for the future. I know the master plan is important. However, I don't know if delaying that for a year would be a better alternative than an actual construction or design project that people can see and have the hope that it will be coming to fruition in a year or so. So it's a mixed bag. It's whatever you feel the priority is.
Well, it is, and that's why I was kind of throwing it out there. If we can do it, I would like to see us do it. if we can. Number two, if we put this off another year, we're looking 3 to 5 years, maybe it could be more, depending on what the budget is next year. So we wanted this Morgan Alley redesigned to complement our downtown, of course, and also complement the theater and our science center that's coming on. And I just think that if we could leave that in the budget, anyway, I'd sure like to see that stay also.
Hey, Larry,
I agree with you, Mayor.
what was your recommendation, which I liked, but I don't remember verbatim what it said.
In terms of the master plan, but it could be addressed both of them. But the master plan is probably easier to slow pedal it until the December, January timeframe. In other words, we would go through this at staff level, the critique and vetting of firms, but not bring the contract to you until December, January timeframe. And at that point, I think we would have a pretty good sense of what our cash flow was going to be, what it had been from sales tax, and we'd be in the middle of property tax collections, but sales tax revenues we'd see the tell. We'd have a quarter under our belt, and midway through the second quarter.
I rescind my motion and I restated. I moved that we moved Morgan Windsor Alley and the downtown master plan update to our December meeting.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
I have a motion.
I'm sorry. Well, may I have some clarification, Councilmember Anthony? Is it you're moving it? Is it keeping it in the budget and then it would be considered in December as the manager has suggested? I just want to make sure that that's what you're saying.
I'm not keeping it in. I'm moving it to December to make a decision whether or not we're able to do it based upon where we are financially.
Well, I that's what I would reason the clarification is. You're not keeping it in the budget? You're saying decide that it be in the budget in FY, that for later consideration in FY 21. In other words, defer it, keep it in the budget, but not actually fund it until we get to December. I think we're just trying to make sure we fully understand what you're asking for.
That's what we're trying to do, G.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Anthony. I have a second from
Lynn.
Mr. Kazan. Trying to decide whether to call you Mr. or Lynn. Gordon. Yes or no, Mr. Gordon?
Okay, I never heard Mujib's clarification. We're leaving it in the budget, but we are going to delay the actual funding for it until possibly the first of the year due to COVID-19. Now, is that correct?
It will be reconsidered in December.
Right, but it's in the budget, but we're going to delay the financing or funding of it until then.
We're going to look at it again in December, yes.
And that's just the downtown master plan, correct?
And the Morgan.
And the Morgan Alley.
And Morgan Windsor.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
Morgan Windsor.
That's why we're seeking clarification.
Okay.
I think it's an important fact. On the downtown Monroe slide, we did eliminate, the request was for $1.443 million, and we cut out 1.2. You only left in $243,000. And so here's another question that I would have. That seems like, not a lot of money that we could include in this budget for things that have been delayed for many years to come. That's number one of my comments. And then, of course, number two is we haven't gotten to a point with this budget yet where we have ascertained where it's going to require any tax increase. And I would need and want to know that before I start to delay too many of these decisions.
Mayor, Councilmember Gordon, and other council members, the budget's being presented to you without a recommended tax increase. It is being presented to you without a tax increase.
Okay.
The increases that that the exception is that the increases that have been proposed are shown on each of the individual slides in respect to the particular department or enterprise. For example, water, sewer, electric, gas, aquatic center, stormwater, and I may have missed one, but the exception of those, which technically are not tax increases, they're fee increases. So notwithstanding that point, there's not a tax increase proposed by myself or by staff at this time, or nor are we anticipating it.
Right. So if we've already cut out the 1.2 million out of the downtown, out of a $1.4 million request, we've already made a significant reduction there.
I agree with you, Freddie. I think with the downtown only coming out to being 225,000 compared to some of the other departments, I think we should go ahead and move forward with both of these projects to keep everything moving forward in downtown.
Okay, do I have a second motion now?
Well, no, Mayor, you've got, I think it's I think Councilmember Anthony made a motion. I will defer to Councilmember Kazian if he has seconded, and he just raised his hand to indicate he has. So you have that one, you need to act on that motion before you have anything else.
I have a motion by Ms. Anthony, a second by Mr. Kazian. All right, Mr. Gordon.
Yes. So if the motion is to eliminate these two items from the proposed budget, then I vote no on that motion.
Okay, so you vote no. Mr. McGee?
No.
Well, hold on. No, hold on. So just to verify then, because I think Councilmember Gordon did make raises the right question, which is, I don't believe the motion now deletes the items from the budget. If that's what Councilmember Anthony's motion now is, then I just want to make sure that everyone is acting on the motion.
I'm gonna ask Ms. Anthony to restate her motion.
That would be good.
Okay, the motion was to not take it out the budget, but to delay until December so we can see where we are as far as our financials are concerned.
So it's funded but not to be executed upon until December.
Now,
Is that what you're saying, ma'am?
that's correct.
Council members understand that, or we need to do it again?
So what does the execution piece mean? Does that mean we have to vote upon that, or are we just gonna look at our numbers and see if we can afford to do it?
Well, I think it's I think you're telling staff that you are asking us to come back to you in December and tell us if the funding is there to move forward with those two. So it would be the execution of it. You would not be signing any contracts or moving forward on it at all. So it does not delete it from the budget. It keeps it in the budget, but no action is taken until December.
Okay, sounds good.
So then I think, Mayor, given that, you may want to ask then Councilmember Gordon now to be able to, depending now on the clarification, what his vote is.
I can support that motion.
Okay.
I can support
so
that
his
motion.
Is still a no, Mayor. Thank you.
I said I can support.
So that's a yes.
That is a
Yeah,
yes.
it's a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. A yes for me.
Yes for me.
Okay, that was a no from Gordon, a yes from James.
No,
yes for Gordon.
Gordon said yes.
No, I did say yes to the motion. Clarify.
Got that.
Okay.
Now let me ask a question.
Then it's yes, yes, okay.
Are there any other discussion on this motion? If not, hearing none, take a vote. Mr. Gordon, I got your vote. It was a yes. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
Mr. Gordon, Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Holloway,
Yes.
and I have Mr. Kazar as a yes, and I will be a yes. So that will pass and be taken back up in December. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council.
All right, Lisa, back to you.
Okay. That was it for this slide. The rest of the proposed budget schedule. At the May 5th meeting, we plan to present the budget message. We will distribute the budget books prior to the meeting. We plan to adopt the fee schedule. We plan to call for the public hearing, which would be held on June 2nd, where we would adopt the budget.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, okay, with the presentation of the budget message and everything, so that's the stuff that we talked about today, will we be able to see the changes and everything before we make a decision on this budget?
Yes, because you will have that before the May 5 meeting, I believe, and then the vote to actually adopt the budget would be at its earliest on June the 2nd. I'll defer to the finance director and the manager on it.
Yes, we'll make these changes in that budget book that we distribute.
And then if we need to make any other changes, will we be able to do that before it's adopted?
Yes.
Yes, you have the right to make any changes you wish before adoption and at adoption.
Okay, thank you.
It is your budget.
All right, Lisa, anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Lisa. Lisa,
Yes.
nice job.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, does council have anything before I call for a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a comment too.
Go right ahead.
I concur with Councilman Kazai. I would like to thank the manager, the department heads, the staff for their intelligence, their good judgment, and their common sense in the matter of these trying times. And I applaud their efforts in this budget, and I totally support it.
I agree with you saying.
I agree, and I was gonna say something to that, but you did it so well, I'll just.
Ditto.
Thanks,
Major dittos.
thanks all department head. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Anthony, second by Mr. Kazire. Mr. Gordon?
Yes, I
He's gone.
support that.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Holloway?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.